Terry McLaurin just skipped the final workout of the voluntary session, and whatever it means, whether it's something or it's nothing, certainly got a lot of attention. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome inside today's episode of Locked On Commanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, here with you every Monday through Friday. Your eyes, your ears, your friend on the ground covering the Washington Commanders, doing so for WUSA9.com, your local CBS affiliate, doing it for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com as well. And I want to thank you for coming through today for this episode. Everydayers, those of you who come through every day, a special thank you to you as always for doing so. And everybody out there, if you're not already subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this episode, please take the time to do so now. If you're new to the show, welcome. Hope you like it. I'm glad you found us. And again, if you subscribe, like the video, it'll help other Commanders fans find us just like you did. Locked On Commanders is a daily podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So make sure you come back again soon. On today's episode, we are going to talk about whether or not Jayden Daniels is already a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. We're going to enter the mailbag, answer a question pertaining to safety Gabe Taylor, but we're going to start it all off talking about Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry did something a little bit scary on Wednesday, did not attend the final day of the Washington Commanders Phase 2 voluntary workout program, had been present for the entire rest of it, had obviously been in Ashburn. We met with Terry at a community event that he did recently, had a chance to talk to him and all those things. So his not showing up or not attending the final day of the voluntary workout, sparking some questions, sparking some concerns. I got more than a few text messages from insiders asking if it was serious, asking if it was not serious. Overall, I don't think it's something you should hit the panic button over right now. But let's dive into this thing. Jordan Schultz was the reporter reporting that McLaurin skipped the last voluntary workout day of the Commanders' second phase of their offseason workout program. Now, the important thing to remember here, and I'm always going to have this stance, it's voluntary. And voluntary is voluntary. At the end of the day, like, you can want guys there. You can appreciate the guys who show up. You can absolutely use it as a benefit to say, look, this guy even shows up during the voluntary workouts, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, they're voluntary. So I will never detract from it. Now, can we acknowledge, if this were the case, it's not with Terry, but it has been with other players in the past. Hey, didn't have the greatest last season. Maybe you need to sharpen up on some things. Could potentially benefit your professional career. That leads into the endorsements and the attention and the commercials and whatever else. Could it be helpful? Should you probably want to take advantage of it? Yeah, I'll go that far with players, but Terry is not necessarily that guy. So for Terry to be there for the entire rest of it and miss the last day, I'm going to be okay with that. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, there goes Terry McLaurin's 6 straight 1,000-yard season. There goes another touchdown record. Nothing like that. I think it's a non-factor as far as just simply missing the last voluntary workout, right? But then there's the next layer of this. Next layer of this, of course, is the contract. Terry McLaurin is in the final year of the 3-year extension that he signed with the Commanders back in 2022. The last year of his rookie contract counts for $25.5 million against the salary cap this year, and he has a $5.6 million void number in 2026. So for those who don't remember, void years in contract. So that basically means if Terry McLaurin is not on the roster in 2026, the Commanders are still on the books for $5.6 million against their cap, accounting for Terry McLaurin, right? So if he's signed, that void number goes away. Usually it's kind of enveloped in the new contract and all that stuff, and just his standard cap hit is his standard cap hit. Sometimes these contracts, there is a termination date on this, and usually that termination date is before the beginning of the new league year. So you might hear like a week, 10 days or so before the beginning of the new league year, hey, the Commanders just hit $5.6 million in dead cap number. I've seen players where that void number hits and then they still get a new contract done. I've seen players where they agree with the team to extend the deadline on that void year hit and they end up getting a contract done. So there's a lot of different things that can take place there. But that's basically what has people so enthralled in this story, right? Is the fact that Terry McLaurin is entering the final year of his contract. Clearly, the Commanders want to get something done. Clearly, Terry McLaurin wants to get something done. Terry McLaurin entering his 7th season in the National Football League, was 3rd round pick in 2019 out of Ohio State. He's got 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons to his name currently. That streak is current and active. A career high 13 touchdowns in 2024. Also had a career high in receptions, despite having the fewest targets since his rookie season. So the pass game to Terry McLaurin between Jayden and Terry, very, very efficient. His catch percentage, success percentage, all were career highs, and he was a second-time All-Pro second-team All-Pro for the first time in his career. So a lot of good things for Terry McLaurin to build off of coming into a negotiating year, right? Not a contract year in 2024, but a negotiating year. And clearly, this is a tactic, right? Like, let's call it what it is. This is a tactic, because here's the thing about Jordan Schultz. Jordan Schultz is a guy who puts a lot of reports out there. He's done a lot of good work and all that stuff. Very, very well established in the scene or whatever. Not a Commanders beat reporter. Not in Ashburn, Virginia, as far as I'm aware. I've never met him. Well, no, that's not true. Actually, I've met him at the NFL Scout and Combine, but I've never met him at a Commanders event. Never seen him at a Commanders practice. So this is information that he was not present in Ashburn, because if Jordan Schultz was present in Ashburn, I'd have been present in Ashburn to see Terry not there. This is information that was given to him by someone who knows Terry wasn't there or saw that Terry wasn't there. And when you go through the media literacy checklist, the first thing you have to know is, okay, let's understand where this information came from. Since Jordan's not there, it came from somebody else. Then the next step is who has the most to gain from this situation? Who has the most to gain from the story being out there that Terry McLaurin didn't participate in the final day of voluntary workouts, and that is now becoming the lead story of a segment of a somewhat popular Washington Commanders professional podcast? Terry McLaurin does, and Terry McLaurin's agent does, right? Adam Peters doesn't benefit from this. Josh Harris doesn't benefit. Dan Quinn doesn't benefit. And clearly, as you know from dealing with the Commanders over the last year, this would not be the way necessarily that the Commanders would operate. The Jonathan Allen story, for example, came out the day that they were going to talk about it. This is a situation where, hey, look, we're going to let the public know. We're going to talk about this in just a little bit. That is how this team's going to operate. This kind of stuff is not necessarily how this team is going to operate. Whether or not you should be panicked, honestly, the first benchmark of whether or not you should be panicking comes in about a week, in a little bit less than a week. On May 28th, the OTAs begin. That is the third phase of the offseason program. And if Terry McLaurin is there for OTAs, new contract or no new contract, obviously it's going to be a point of conversation. Dan Quinn already knows he's going to get asked about it. Terry is going to be requested to speak, and he's going to get asked about it, all this kind of stuff. So obviously there's going to be at least a little bit of a hope that the contract gets done before then. And perhaps that was what this is in the spirit of is, hey, this is going to be a lot of noise now. So let's just get this deal done before May 28th and we'll all be happy. And we can just talk about the new contract instead of talking about the potential of a training camp holdout or anything like that. So this is the first time the Commanders under this regime, obviously it's not a very long regime anyway, but this is the first time this regime has had to deal with something like this. So, it is also a kind of a case study. We'll see how they kind of deal with it, whether they get the deal done, all those things. Again, not worried about it right now because the phase and the workout was voluntary. If he doesn't show up for OTAs next week, then it's more of a story. But really, it's mandatory mini camp that you really have your eyes on when things will get heated up June 10th through June 12th. If he's not there and the deal is not done, that is when this becomes more of a conversation. So we will discuss worst and best case scenarios for potential Terry McLaurin holdout, what his new contract might look like, and more on the next episode of Locked On Commanders. But right now, let's switch gears from a veteran staple, face of the franchise, to a rookie long shot looking to join the franchise that his brother was at one point the face of and still is very much a face of, Gabe Taylor. A few of you asked, can he actually make this roster? Is this more about legacy and emotion than it is performance? I'm going to give you my honest answer. He's got a real chance to stick around if he keeps doing what he did in minicamp and he gets the opportunity to do so. That and more coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And this episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, just like Dan Quinn and Adam Peters aren't going to shut it down when practice ends, whether it's navigating Terry McLaurin, potentially skipping future workouts, taking a deeper look at Gabe Taylor's roster chances, or building the future around quarterback Jayden Daniels. Finding the right people is everything, and that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in for you and your small business. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and find the qualified candidates you need all in one place. They even help you write job descriptions and get your job in front of the right people fast using deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile pic to double your reach. No wonder 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Commanders, we talked about Terry McLaurin and his missing the final day of voluntary workouts, potential contract situation, all those things, negotiating ploy, all those things. And we're going to turn now to a mailbag question. I told you guys yesterday we had a mailbag episode on Wednesday, and I said then that we would finish up the mailbag on Thursday unless there was some news to talk about. Turns out there's news to talk about. So we're going to go ahead. We talked about that. We're going to dip back into the mailbag here, and then we're actually going to dip back into the mailbag again on Friday because we've got other stuff to talk about as well. So we're going to spread the love just a little bit. So insiders David and Art both came through with Gabe Taylor questions. And to be honest, I've been asked Gabe Taylor questions leading into rookie minicamp where he got his tryout, obviously. But then even after that, I've been asked some Gabe Taylor questions as well. So it's not just David and Art, but specifically to this mailbag. David asked, what do you think Gabe Taylor chances are in having his invite extended? Art asked, will Gabe Taylor make the roster, active or practice squad roster? So good questions. Obviously, Gabe Taylor is someone that a lot of fans are very interested in. The younger brother of slain Washington Redskins safety Sean Taylor, who tragically passed away defending his family. Gabe Taylor was 6 years old when his brother was killed, and doesn't live his life revolving around being the brother of Sean Taylor, but certainly embraces his legacy, embraces his memory, and wants to make him proud. And I do believe that Sean would be very, very proud of Gabe for what he's been able to do. So Gabe Taylor, the player, however, right? That's really what this is about, because I'm telling you right now, the Washington Commanders are not about this business of bringing guys in just for the clicks, just for the storyline, and all those things, right? Like, at least not this version of the Washington Commanders. Gabe Taylor has some real talent here. He's got some real football talent here. Played for 5 years at the University of Rice, 4 career sacks in his collegiate career, including 3 of them in 2024, 10 interceptions, 3 in 2021 and 2024, respectively, 2 each in 2022 and 2023. Caused 27 career pass defense, forced 6 fumbles in his career, ran about a high 4.3, low 4.4 at his pro day combine. Plays with physicality. Honestly, plays like a commander. Like, if you turn on the tape, he plays like a heat-seeking missile. He doesn't really pull up. He's not going to make business decisions. He's going to go out there and he's going to make football decisions. He is on the smaller end, which obviously is going to hurt him playing the position that he plays. He's not quite big enough for you to look at him and say, yeah, you're a safety, but he's also not quite agile enough to say you could be a slot corner, things like that. So he's kind of a tweener, right? We talk about there's a difference in today's NFL where you have tweeners and you have versatile. Versatile guys are guys that can play multiple positions, are willing to do so, and have the tools that fit. Tweeners are guys that could play in multiple positions by the way that they play, but they don't kind of fit firmly in either one. Gabe Taylor is kind of a tweener in that sense. Special teams guy, potentially. There was a clip of him at rookie minicamp running the hula hoop and getting downfield for punt coverage that went a little bit viral, at least amongst Commanders fans. That kind of showed his burst, his electricity, his speed, all those things. So could he be a special teams only type of guy? Yeah, absolutely. But it's hard for those guys. Like, it's weird because the UDFA world, the undrafted free agent world, you always tell guys making it on special teams is going to be your bread and butter. And that's true, 100% true. However, teams also want to be able to see a future for you as a defender or as an offensive player, one or the other, even if they're going to leave you on special teams to develop. So you look at a guy like Jeremy Reeves, who was, obviously he's been special teams, all pro, all those things. But there has always been this kind of sense, like if you need him to play defense, there is enough ability there. There's enough intangibles. There's enough physical profile there for Jeremy Reeves to contribute as a playing safety, not just a special teams guy. Now, there have been guys in the NFL who have been pure special teams guys, did nothing for offense, nothing for defense, and certainly been there. Nick Bellore comes to mind, really not a guy that they put in the linebacker rotation for the Washington Commanders, but a special teams ace, right? So there's possibilities there, but the less you can do, the less likely you are to make an NFL roster. Right now, So there's that part of it. The other part of it is he's kind of a Rob McDaniel type. Rob McDaniel, young drafted free agent out of Jackson State. They kind of play very similar. When you turn on the tape, they play with very similar aggression. They play with very similar styles. The difference is Rob McDaniel is definitely more of a safety build than Gabe Taylor is, and Rob McDaniel is on the Commanders roster. So they kind of already have that guy right now. Practice squad versus active roster squad, look, the position group depth, the competition there looks like this. Quan Martin, Will Harris at the top. Jeremy Reeves is there, Tyler Owens, Dominique Hampton, Percy Butler, Ben Nickel, all coming from last year's roster. Then you have Rob McDaniel, who came in as a priority undrafted free agent. And those are the guys, at least before you get to a guy like Gabe Taylor. You figure no more than 5 are likely going to make the active roster, leaving 3 of those guys to be what you would probably consider primary options to be practice squad players. Percy Butler is someone that we've talked about potentially being an odd man out and either traded or just straight up released and allowed to go find work somewhere else. So if he's not in the mix, then you're kind of looking at like Ben Nickel, Rob McDaniel, again, depending on how guys, if Rob McDaniel's this year's Tyler Owens, then like, what do they do with, how healthy is Tyler? What's up with Dominique Hampton? Like, there's a lot of questions here. And that's kind of the point of the conversation is that group is already supremely crowded. And so now the question is, okay, well, can Gabe play maybe in the slot? And for me personally, from the tape, I just don't see enough agility to trust him in the slot per se. And then, okay, well, is he good enough as a practice squad special teams contributor that we want to keep him around, develop him? Again, that's not a question I can answer for you. That's a question that Dan Quinn and Adam Peters would have to answer. So UDFAs, again, they have to prove the ability and potential for this team to get their shot, but they're going to get their opportunity. So if Gabe Taylor did enough of the rookie minicamp to warrant coming back either during OTAs or on a training camp invite, things like that, it'll happen, right? So I think that's something you can trust. Tyler Owens from the safety group alone is evidence of that. He's in UDFA. Not a lot of people talked about him coming into the situation, but very quickly made a name for himself. That being said, there's only so many slots. So I think what you can trust is if he makes the team, as in gets an invite to the 90-man roster, goes to training camp, all that stuff, it's not a story, right? It's not just for the emotions of it. It's because Gabe Taylor went out there and earned it. If he doesn't, then there's a reason for that too. And it's not necessarily, again, Gabe Taylor is a bad player because you look at the depth in the group alone, and there's a lot of guys there that you can still like. So I can't put a number on it. I can't tell you like 70% chance he's there, training camp, things happen, knock on wood, but injuries happen, all that kind of stuff. What I can tell you is that Gabe Taylor's still very hard at work, training, preparing, keeping his body right, because I think it was already right. So that speaks well for him and his future in the NFL. He had multiple opportunities to attend rookie mini camps coming into it, chose the Washington Commanders. So, hopefully those teams, if it's not Washington, hopefully one of those other teams still interested. And again, you never know what can happen. The good news for Gabe Taylor is these coaches now have exposure to him. He has exposure to the organization, to the way they like to operate. So if someone does go down, again, knock on wood, doesn't happen, but if somebody does go down, as injuries are part of the game, typically we've seen this coaching staffs, front offices, they pull from the guys they know. And now they know Gabe Taylor, not from a familial connection, not from a name connection. They know Gabe Taylor, the football player. And if you remember Gabe Taylor's conversation with us at rookie minicamp, that was his main focus. Take a moment, appreciate the moment. The family appreciates the moment. Certainly let it hit him a little bit that, he watched his brother play for this organization. Now he's wearing the colors, but once it got time to get on the field, that's what it's about. It's about the business. It's about showing them who he is as a football player. He feels like he did a good job. I've heard no words that he didn't do a good job. So again, we'll see how it goes from there. Well, it's hard to say with confidence that he's going to be there. Again, I think that he's at least positioned himself to be a guy that he's in that short list pool of players that the Commanders would pull from if they needed to, or if they decide to moving forward. And I think that speaks well for any undrafted free agent. Guys like Gabe Taylor are trying to prove they belong in the league. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got quarterback Jayden Daniels, who clearly belongs in the National Football League, a player that some are already debating as potential top 10 quarterback. Where does he rank according to some, and where does he rank according to me? That coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Commanders, got a topic here that sparked my interest, so I thought it might spark your interest. Top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League, really just top quarterbacks in the National Football League. And Pro Football Focus recently ranked, stacked, and racked all 32 starting quarterbacks in the National Football League and that's projected starting quarterbacks in the National Football League. So for the Cleveland Browns, they've got like 6 starting quarterback potential guys on their roster. Only one is that guy, and that guy is Joe Flacco for the purposes of this list. So if you're a Shedeur Sanders guy, he's not on this roster yet he's not on this list yet because he's not the projected starter, at least not right now. So the way that PFF did this and typically does this is they break guys up into tiers and then they number them, 1 to 32 as well. Tier 1 being the elite quarterbacks, tier 2, the high-end starters, tier 3A, the solid starters is the way they put them, flashes of greatness. Tier 3B, solid starters still, but need more help. Tier 4, young with a wide range of outcomes. Tier 5 are veterans who are replaceable soon. Tier 6, low-end starters, not long-term options, of which there are 4. And yes, Joe Flacco of the Cleveland Browns is in there. I'm not going to read over this whole list here, but tier 1, the elite category, 4 guys in that list. Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, number 1. Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals, number 2. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, number 3. And reigning MVP, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills, number 4. So Jayden Daniels not in the elite status for PFF just yet, which I think after 1 year is fair, right? Like you've heard me say this every day. You've heard me say this before about teams winning and quarterbacks doing well. It's really hard to win in the NFL. It's really hard to be good in the NFL. It's even harder to be good twice, right? And we saw this with CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans, very good rookie season, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, came back in the second season. And again, I think for a lot of reasons that aren't necessarily in CJ's control, but had a regression year. You know what I mean? So again, it's hard to be good 2 years in a row. Tier 2, the high-end starters. 4 more names in this tier, and starts off with Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. Boo. Number 6 is Jayden Daniels, Washington Commanders. So that's where he comes in on this PFF list. Number 7, Matthew Stafford of the Los Angeles Rams. Number 8, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers. I continue to like Justin Herbert as a quarterback. Don't get me wrong, but I continue to believe that Justin Herbert hype is just a little bit overblown as of right now. But that is what it is. So, rounding out the top 10, Jared Goff was number 9, the Detroit Lions. Geno Smith of the Las Vegas Raiders coming in 10th. Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers, who just got a fat new contract, I think 7th most annual average value, if memory serves correctly, comes in number 11. Overall, not a bad spot for him at all. CJ Stroud, by the way, comes in tier 3B, 14th overall behind Baker Mayfield, just ahead of Kyler Murray. So that's the list there for PFF. I clearly think that, Jayden comes in a pretty decent spot here. PFF notes that he's ranked 6 overall, tier 2 high-end starter. PFF's highest graded rookie quarterback ever, had a 90.6 overall grade in his rookie season. Of course, it's been mentioned, Jayden Daniels are arguably the best rookie season in all sports, in all history of sports, anywhere. Credited for poise under pressure and clutch moments. Yeah, caution about Jayden Daniels that other quarterbacks like CJ Stroud, PFF mentions, have had elite rookie years and then regress. We just talked about that. Still, PFF sees Daniels as a franchise cornerstone already. I would agree with that as well. My top 10 quarterbacks, for those of you who care, which if you're listening or watching this episode, you probably care a little bit. Number 1, I've got Patrick Mahomes. That matches what PFF has. Number 2, I've got Lamar Jackson. He was 3rd on their list. I've got him 2nd, so we're not too far off from each other. 3rd, I've got Josh Allen, who was 4th on their list, 3rd on mine. So again, we're not too far off. 4th, I've got Joe Burrow. He was 2nd on their list, 4th on mine. Why is Joe Burrow 4th? Well, because the difference between Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes is that the top 3 can affect the game in more than one way. Joe Burrow, if you tell these 4 quarterbacks you're not allowed to leave the pocket, you're not allowed to run, at least you're not allowed to run past the line of scrimmage, right? I think Joe Burrow might be number 1, to be quite honest with you. But because Patrick Mahomes is allowed to use his athleticism, because Lamar Jackson weaponizes his athleticism, because Josh Allen weaponizes his athleticism and his build, those 3 guys, for me, they can impact the game in more ways than just as quarterbacks. So they get the nod ahead of Joe Burrow. For me, my 5th ranked quarterback is Washington Commanders, Jayden Daniels. He's my 5th ranked quarterback. Yeah, it's pretty high for a guy who's only done it for 1 year, but that 1 year is a little bit different than a lot of other guys in 1 year, right? CJ Stroud is someone that I didn't cover, and I'm not going to tell you that I watched every snap over and over and over again like I did Jayden, but because CJ Stroud is an Ohio State guy, I'm an Ohio State fan by birth and by upbringing. Obviously, I was curious about how he was going to start his career and how he's going to play his second season. And I would just tell you that there were things that happened in CJ Stroud's rookie season, really good rookie season, But you still looked at it, you said, okay, yeah, but if you weren't playing in the AFC South, it wouldn't be as good. Okay, here's these circumstances that made it look a little bit better. With Jayden Daniels literally put this team on his back during the final stretch of the regular season, in the postseason at times, and even that Philadelphia Eagles NFC Championship game debacle to end the season. You look at that game, you come out and you say, Jayden Daniels is arguably the best player on the field in that game, in the NFC Championship game as a rookie. So for Jayden, for me, putting him number 5, those are the reasons I have confidence, because his amazing rookie season to me was more about what he was able to do. Now, that's not to take away from coaching influences and teammates being around him, all that stuff. But when you look at his situation, his execution, there's less, okay, the team around him really picked him up. The team around him really helped him. The circumstances, the context really helped him out. And there's much more Jayden Daniels impacted the context, impacted the situation around him. So that's why I have him number 5. I've got Matt Stafford number 6. He was number 7 on the PFF list. This is where this is one of the areas that we really start to differ. Baker Mayfield, I've got him 7th. PFF had him 13th. I've got Jalen Hurts 8th, right? Still top 10, still good. PFF had him 5th. His Super Bowl performance, Jalen Hurts' Super Bowl performance was great. Can't take that away from him. Was very impressed. Good stuff, young fella. But I just can't get over the fact that at the end of the day, guys, Philadelphia Eagles tried to lean on Jalen Hurts for the first 3 games of 2024, and it did not go well. Starting in game 4, they leaned on Saquon Barkley the entire rest of the way. And in my opinion, had the Eagles let him break the single season rushing record, he'd have been the MVP. And it's hard for me to put a quarterback who needs that type of a player to be behind him to be like a top 5 quarterback. It's just hard for me to make that connection. I just kind of look at it like if you put Saquon Barkley on the Washington Commanders roster, the Washington Commanders run roughshod. They probably win 14 games last year. They run roughshod through the NFC, and they run away with the Super Bowl, which would have been amazing. So yeah, Jalen Hurts, number 8. They've got him number 5. CJ Stroud for me is number 9. They've got him 14. Again, there were some things contextually about the Houston Texans about playing the AFC South that elevated CJ Stroud as a rookie, but looking at his sophomore, through the struggle, through the lack of offensive line, through his receiver injuries, I think CJ Stroud grew a lot as a leader. And he showed a lot of poise in the face of that situation. And I've got Brock Purdy 10th. They've got him 11. So there's my top 10, PFF's top 10. Let me know your top 10 in the comments, or let me know why Jayden Daniels is your number 1 quarterback, because he's just the best there ever was, the bestest of the bestest. On the next episode, again, we'll dive a little bit deeper into this Terry McLaurin situation, go a little bit into the what if, what could the contract look like, what if he holds out, all those things. And how we expect maybe this Washington Commanders regime to handle that situation, among other things, including the top 10 Washington Commanders who will impact the team's future. Insiders voted on it. They allowed me to open it up to the public. So that voting poll, that Google form, if you want to vote, is up on my Twitter feed. It's also up on the YouTube channel. Just go to the posts section of the Locked On Commanders YouTube page, and you can find the link to vote in that Google Doc. We'll talk about that, as well as another mailbag question asking about what happens to free agents that sign in the offseason but get cut before the beginning of the regular season. So an already stacked Friday episode coming for you on Locked On Commanders, so make sure you come back for that. In the meantime, make your second listen the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs help you stay the most informed NFL fans out there. Locked On NFL Scouting can be found on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. As always, thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day, every day, every day. Thanks for coming through every single day. Everybody out there, if you're out and about, please be safe, be kind to one another. And I'll see you right back here next time for another episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.